Would you like to pop out a resin and alcohol piece and know beforehand that no unwanted white ink drops sank all the way to the bottom? I mean, at all. Let me show you a way. Hi everyone, it's Miriam with a Y. For those of you that have been in my Facebook group for the last several months, some of these pieces will look familiar. Many of you know I love experimenting, and I really love playing with alcohol inks in resin. But one of the things that can be an annoyance is when white ink sinks where you don't want it to. I've shown you how to remedy that by drilling out unwanted blobs, but now I want to show you a way to get these fun effects without having white ink sink unpleasantly to the bottom ever. I put off doing this video because this technique can be temperamental if you want a specific look, and I was afraid some of you might be frustrated. But then what occurred to me is that fluid art in general is unpredictable, and that's part of the fun. It's what got me into it. I needed a way to be less rigid and type A creatively. As a jeweler, when I'm wearing that hat, everything also has to be a tad precise. And surprises, yeah, they're not so okay. But in this fluid world, I get to give up control a little, because I still like having some control. So I'm hoping you embrace that unpredictability and enjoy this fun way to add inks to your resin. Okay, let me show you how I get what I call the cloud and ripple effect. Oh, and stay tuned at the end for more examples. I'm mixing up enough resin for 2 thin, coaster-sized pieces. I get asked a lot to recommend a resin, and of the 12 different resins in my studio, I honestly pull out ClearCast 7050 the most, especially if I'm working thin, because I know it's going to cure hard and strong in 24 hours. I'm working on a little platform, which is just 4 of my little silicone cups suctioned onto a piece of glass from a cheap picture frame. I want to be able to move these pieces later, and I don't want the molds to flex during that move, so putting them on something rigid like this piece of glass is going to help. And raising it up lets me get my hands underneath really quickly. I pour resin into both molds about 2/3 of the way up, and I make sure I leave some resin in the cup, about 20 to 25 milliliters for these 2 molds. I do a quick check for bubbles along the inner edges of the molds, and then I use a heat gun, not a torch, in order to pop any bubbles in the resin. You can use a torch, but if you do, be super careful because you run the risk of having your resin overheat at the edge and fusing to the mold. So if you're not confident with how you use your torch, that way use a heat gun. It's a lot safer for this. Ordinarily, I'd leave the extra resin in the bigger silicone cup, but to make things easy for you to see, I'm making a spout in a little medicine cup and transferring my leftover resin to this little cup. Now, rather than add white over my inks later, like straight out of the bottle, like we would ordinarily do, I'm mixing it into resin now. I'm adding enough to get my resin to look almost opaque. Not quite. Play around with this amount. Different amounts are going to give you different looks, as will the age of the extra resin, meaning how long ago did you mix it? Is it from the same batch as what's in the mold? Or did you mix this resin that you're mixing the white into earlier, like maybe half an hour earlier or even an hour earlier? All of those things make a difference. For this amount of resin, it's taken about 25 to 30 drops of white to get this level of opacity. Now for our color. I'm using JACQUARD PIÑATA, MARABU, and KIELTY inks. This works with any brand, and as you see, you can mix brands in the same piece, so have fun with that too. Grab whatever you want and throw it all in there. I'm going to be making a couple of super quick pieces in this video just to show you the general idea. But if you'd like to see more detailed ways to use this technique, let me know in the comments and I'll happily do that too. It's hard for me to know sometimes which mediums that I use are your favorites because I like a bunch of things and I show a bunch of things. So I'd love to know which you prefer so that I know what to sort of narrow down on and really focus on. On the piece on the left, I'm going to be a bit nutty and draw in my resin with just a thin rod, just to show you what's possible. And in the piece on the right, I won't do anything. I'll leave it alone. I'm not going to manipulate it at all. If you've got the silicone mixing cup with the spout like I used for mixing my resin at the beginning, I prefer pouring from it because I can get finer lines as I pour the white mix. But these thicker lines that I'm getting now will also give us fun effects. Now when you do this, try lots of things. Pour concentric circles, spirals, stars, zigzags, flowers, random lines. Everything you do will yield interesting results. And keep notes as to what you did, which inks you used, the temperature of your resin at the time. Did you warm it first? Did you just use room temperature resin? The pattern that you poured. You'll find it helps a lot in getting more comfortable working with and knowing your resin and getting effects that you really like. So like if you know, hey, when I did this and this, I got this, and you've written that down, you'll be able to do that again. I'm also betting that it will lead to you thinking outside of the box and maybe, I don't know, becoming a little bit of a mad scientist. We're a happy bunch. I recommend it. All right. I'm putting these to bed and we'll see what we get. It's about 21 hours later and these are pretty rigid, so I'm pretty comfortable getting them out of the mold. Now on this one, this is the one that I really didn't manipulate. I just poured the white mix and left it alone. And what you can see is that the lines kind of sank in and everything kind of draws in so that it looks like layers on top of each other, which is a really interesting and fun effect all on its own. I always like that aspect of this. Okay, let us see how this one turned out for having been pretty quickly done. See our side view. How cool is that? Oh my gosh, I just love this stuff. Oh my gosh, that is just so cool. So you can see that the color in this particular case really stayed on the, well, I'm going to say the surface. So the white did not sink through the color. PIñATA is good for that. So if you want brilliant color to stay, like you don't want so much of a pastel effect, PIñATA is the way to go. But sometimes I kind of want a pastel look, so then I'll use other inks. But that is how this particular piece looks without manipulation. I really like that kind of texture right there. I think that's really cool. Okay, let's look at our other piece. So this one, after I turned off the camera, I realized that I kind of wanted a little bit of blue to peek out in some of the negative space. So I dropped a little more Baja blue. Oh no, I'm sorry. MARABU turquoise all the way around, just on the back layer, so that hopefully it'll show in the little clear areas. Okay. All right, that is our edge. Awesome. So here we got more of a pastel-y look because I spiraled in. And it's very wispy here, kind of like organza a little bit. It was a little messy here. I was too quick. I didn't pay enough attention. I could have done a better job there, but you get the idea. So when you do yours, be a little bit more vigilant about your pattern in the center. But I'm hoping that you kind of get a feel for what's possible here, because as you can see in both pieces, there is absolutely no white drops, or drops of any color for that matter, because all the white was already mixed into resin. As I said, the more you play with this, the more varied you'll be able to get your looks to be. If you'd like less white overall, like less of the clouds and ripples, pour less of the white and resin mix. If you're okay with some drops sinking now and then, combine this technique with the usual method of just dropping your colors followed by white straight from the bottle, like we, are used to doing. Like do that on the periphery of the piece maybe, and then in the middle do the cloud and ripple effect, or do the cloud and ripple effect on the periphery, and in the middle drop your inks like we're used to doing. If you'd like to see more about how to do this, let me know in the comments and with a thumbs up. Links for all the inks I used, the silicone cups, the molds, and the resin are all in the description box, as is a 20% off coupon code for the resin. I greatly appreciate when you use those links because it helps make it possible for me to keep this channel running and to be able to share things that I find and learn, etc. In the video description box below, you'll also find other ways to take part in getting these videos made. Huge thanks to my patrons on Patreon. I am having such a good time getting to know you guys. Thank you to everyone for watching. May your creative nature shine. See you soon. Bye now.